Welcome to Common Sense Investing. My name is Cameron, and I am here to talk another week about microcap stocks because that's what I love to do. That's what I love to invest in. Every week I come on this channel and talk about some of hopefully the best stocks in the stock market for microcap stocks, both in Canada and the United States. Man, I'm tired. I've been falling asleep. I don't know about everyone else out there, but winter is starting to get a little bit closer. Days are a little bit darker. I'm kind of falling asleep when it comes to microcap stocks. The combination of kind of a lack of movement in the marketplace. There's not a lot of stocks, making significant amounts of money right now. There's not a lot of stocks crashing. We've kind of been at this consolidation phase for the last little while since, the spring bull run probably ended at around the middle of the summer. Weird enough, right? A spring bull run that we got in the summer, but it's been pretty quiet. And when you combine the fact that microcap stocks have been pretty quiet with the fact that I'm also getting, exhausted just researching so many different types of companies. That's where we're at today. So a few things to talk about because I am only a little bit tired because there's been so many stocks to research, as well as on my Substack and on my Patreon, I offer access to additional videos that I don't release here on YouTube. And one of the things that I am starting up again here is some introductory videos for investors to learn microcap stock investing. One of the things that I realized going to more investor conferences this year and reaching out to some of my audience is I am amazed and wonderfully happy at how many new investors there are still out there. People that I've spoken to that said, Cameron, I watch your channel a couple times. I don't understand what you're talking about. I'm only picking up about half of what you're talking about. I'm picking up a third of what you're talking about, right? And sometimes I find I make that mistake where I assume that some of my audience are simply kind of expert investors, been doing this for a while, and maybe I talk a little fast and get a little ahead of myself sometimes. So I am trying to get back to the basics. Recording some of these videos. In this video here, price to sales ratio, it's basically an introduction to the simplest valuation metric you can use in microcap stocks and the stock market in general. But price to sales is especially important in microcap stocks simply because so many of the companies down here are inconsistently profitable. And I ramble on for about an hour talking about price to sales and how to value microcap stocks. So that is in my Substack and my Patreon. Over time, though, I am going to be releasing smaller little educational videos to YouTube, to the public market. And in these videos, like what I'm talking about, again, for any new investors, keep in mind this is truly what my channel is trying to convert. I am trying to attract more people down into microcap stocks, whether that's new investors, whether that's experienced investors, but they're investing in indexes or large caps. I'm trying to get people funly, happily addicted to microcap stocks, not only for the financial performance, but it's good financial literacy, as well as it's almost a hobby sometimes for people, right? Microcap stocks is the type of place where if you put in the work, if you put in the time, if you're willing to listen, if you're willing to educate yourself, you make money. And that's a great hobby to have, right? So in these videos, I talk about some of the basics. What is a market cap? What is sales? What is then price to sales? What it is, why it exists, where to use it, how to apply it. In these videos is what I discuss, because this is really what we're looking for when we're investing. We're all looking for this, right? You got a good company here, you get a good stock here, and it's priced at, $40,000. How do we find this good car? How do we find this good vehicle? What are we looking for? And then once we find other good cars, other good vehicles, other good companies, other good stocks, and we see different price tags on those different companies, why is that? Why do they look the same? Why are they priced differently? Is this an opportunity? Is this a value trap? Is there a reason why one similar looking vehicle is priced differently than another one that looks almost identically the same? This is some of the concepts that even as experienced investors, it's really good to come back to sometimes and talk about, because even for me, every once in a while, I start forming biases. And I always say that When you form biases in investing, it's one of the worst things you could do. Every once in a while, it's nice to get a bit of a cleanser, just kind of open your mind, go back to the basics, simplify your investing strategy, try not to make it too overly complicated. And yeah, like the video I just produced on my Substack and Patreon is talking about price to sales. It really is a good reminder sometimes for me just to remind myself, there's no hard rules sometimes in investing. I wish sometimes there was more hard rules. This is good, this other thing is bad, this is great, this is terrible. There's a few of those out there, but really sometimes when we're looking at these stocks, it is mostly just a comparison exercise. We're comparing different companies, we're comparing different stocks, we're trying to find the best investments, better than these other investments, hopefully that get discovered by the rest of the market and then they go up, right? But one of the things is that is done better, easier, more accurate with experience, right? So again, that takes me back. If you have any interest, looking at price to sales and building, our investing muscles with some of the basics, I've been offering that on my Discord and my Substack. So that's at www.commonsenseinvesting.ca. Now I'm going to talk about some specific companies in this video. As usual, let me know comments, concerns, questions, any other stocks that you want to talk about in this video. I have a little presentation here, and then at the end, I will take some questions and anything else you want to look at. Keep in mind, not financial advice, and me talking about some of these stocks is not financial advice. It's not a solicitation to buy, sell, or hold or any of these companies. It's just some of my opinions. I've been wrong plenty in the past, and really if I'm highlighting a stock or I think it's better than some other stocks, all it really should be for you is a trigger to go do your own research, make sure that you have the investing education to make your own personal decisions and go from there, right? This is simply how I invest, not how to invest. So questions, comments at the end or throughout this presentation. I got a list of stocks here to talk about. I normally release one video on YouTube per week, introducing audiences to one stock per week. I've skipped another week recently, and the reason is research. I've been so tired. This is the company list from the investor conference, Small Cap Discoveries, September 29th and 30th in Vancouver. A lot of companies to look at. And again, look, I've highlighted a few of the ones that impressed me a little bit. Not saying I'm right. There's some fantastic companies through here. Absolutely. One of the best things that Small Cap Discoveries does is narrow what could potentially be 100 decent companies, narrow it down to maybe the top 5 out of those 100 companies. And this is what you're seeing is probably the top 5 to 10% of kind of the market out there in Canada. But I did enjoy Avantcor. I did. Sometimes I think you have to remember with investing is that we're not always looking for the best company. The best company isn't always the best investment. Sometimes what's the best investment is the most mispriced company. So even though a company might not be perfect, the fact that it should be a bad company sitting at around 50-cent share price and it's a bad company sitting at 10-cent share price, I still see that as potential opportunity, right? It's not necessarily the best company, it's the most mispriced. I also really liked Grey Wolf Animal Health. I said that this was the only company, the only stock that I actually bought while I was at Small Cap Discoveries, basically sight unseen. I just watched the investor presentation and I was sold. So that's been moving up my list. I really like Next Living Communities. Now, keep in mind is that this is a real estate investment company. It's not necessarily a REIT yet. It's not a real estate investment trust. It's a real estate investment company, so a REIS. They're basically buying up rental properties, mostly for adult living, I believe, and they're buying up these communities or these rental properties in rural communities. So I really like that. I really like their CEO. Of course, NTG Clarity Networks, I always think they have a fantastic presentation. Every time I hear from them, I am impressed. Some higher risk companies, though, moving up my list recently. Of course, I introduced Hypercharge Networks at 6 cents Canadian, I think it was. They went up to about 14 cents. They just released news of a financing. If you're interested in Hypercharge, they have a life offering. I believe it's going to be open to the investing retail public, where you could essentially buy shares, units of Hypercharge Networks for 10 cents Canadian and get a half warrant at around 12 cents Canadian. So that could be a pretty good opportunity. I know I might be crazy, but Tribe Property Technologies is starting to grow on me a little bit. I mean, I think they have a fantastic product and service. They're in property technologies. They're working with artificial intelligence. They have offerings and services that some other companies simply don't. They're struggling with their cash, though, right? That's why they're not a perfect company. They're just kind of moving up my list. I really like Reclaim. I don't know if you've noticed recently on X, Twitter, I've actually been trying out their service. So Reclaim offers a new service or product called Reclaim Protect. And for $20 USA per year, you can protect your personal data online. I have been using Incogni, and it has been costing me $125 per year. So we're talking about a service that is significantly cheaper. And I think this has definitely some marketing value, because I was paying this as I am online, I am on YouTube, I am on X, so I was willing to pay more for the personal protection of my data. But I don't know if your average person is willing to pay like $125 a year just to pull your data offline a little bit, versus do I think your average consumer out there in Canada and the United States will be willing to pay $20 a year American to pull some of their data off the internet so they get less spam calls and other crap like that. And then, of course, Everyday People Financial. This is a company that unfortunately kind of benefits when economies are struggling, when people are struggling. They are a company that reconnects people to a better financial future. And, you know, I do think our economies are struggling a little bit. So this one is slowly growing on me. But this was kind of my list from small cap discovery, some of the companies that impressed me. You know, again, sometimes it's not the absolute best company. It's about a company being mispriced. Avant Core released kind of weak earnings. I thought they were okay. They weren't great, but they were okay. For some reason, the market thought they were pretty lousy, pushed the share price down to 73 cents. It's nice to see Avant starting to rebound here, back up to 96 cents Canadian. And then Grey Wolf Animal Health. I thought I was crazy because this was Small Cap Discoveries in here. This is the only company that I bought at Small Cap Discoveries, even though the price was up significantly. I think I bought it around $1.29 Canadian per share. And, you know, I figured it was either going to bench down or bench up. And so far, it looks like it's benching up. It's up to $1.44 Canadian. So that's good news for me, and a good company, which is what I really like. And then, of course, NTG Clarity Networks. Since, you know, ever since I've been covering NTG Clarity Networks, one of the most volatile stocks I've ever seen. And again here, I mean, $2.95 back in May. This was after, you know, this crazy Donald Trump April right here, and then just down, down, down. I know they had a financing. But I mean, are they really this bad where they've just been going straight downhill since about May? It's been a long journey for NTG Clarity Networks. Recently, a little bit of cup and handle here. So some people that did buy at $1.64, $1.65 Canadian have seen some returns going back up to about $1.88. But I think at some point, hopefully, their Q3 is coming up, I believe on November 12th or around November 12th. I hope they finally start to see some re-rating. So that was kind of the end of small cap discoveries. Then we had Cantech, right? This was in partnership here with Atrium Research, and there was no public access to this one. You could not watch it online. So that's a bit different. that those smaller retail investors being able to watch from home. It was mostly just institutional investors, but still there's a couple companies that I kind of pulled out of there that I thought might do okay. Listing them out here. Sabio Holdings was one of the companies that was paying Atrium Research to disseminate this information. So hopefully they were highlighted or got a good highlight with some of these investors. Again, Reclaim is popping up here. This is a tiny little 8-cent Canadian share price company that's growing on me. Of course, Avant showed up again, looking to try to also convince investors like I thought that they were a little bit cheaper than they should have been. Foran Technology showing up here. I like this one. And then Tribe Property Technologies again. So we're seeing some repetitiveness in some of these investing conferences. I like that. I like some of these companies getting out, telling their story over and over and over. You never know when it just takes the right investor, 2 or 3 right investors, to start seeing. When you're a tiny company, sometimes it only takes a little bit of volume to start seeing your share price go up. So I think this is a smart thing to do. If that wasn't enough, right? And this is the combination of, once those conferences were over, Small Cap Discoveries has been over now for a couple weeks. We're kind of waiting for Planet Microcap in Toronto. This is going to be a big one, October 21st to the 23rd. So researching stocks like crazy, but we've got these couple weeks in between, one more week, basically 8 days away, I think it is, until the 21st. Now it's a week, so I've already lost a day until we get started here in Planet Microcap. So why is this important? Why is my brain in overload right now? There's so many companies, right? So this event's going to have 500 investors, and this is an important consideration to think about, is how many people are going. I do believe Small Cap Discoveries had around 100. So, I mean, Planet Microcap Toronto, because they're a more open to the public type event, do have quite a few more investors showing up. That's a lot of people with a lot of money. I'm assuming everybody attending is going to be looking to buy at least one company. You're bringing cash. You don't go to an event like this without some cash to buy at least one stock that impresses you. 70-30 split between Canadian and non-Canadian. So that's fantastic. I mean, basically that's about 150 investors that are not from Canada. And some of the stocks that I cover are Canadian, so we are looking for that non-Canadian coverage. Maybe we can excite some American investors or some international investors. And again, that could drive share price up. The thing that really impressed me, though, with Planet Microcap in Toronto is 60-40 split between individual investors and institutional. So that is about 200 institutional investors. That's a lot of big money to consider, right? So when we're looking at this kind of split, yeah, sometimes on these investing conferences, I am pretty excited that, somebody's going to find my favorite little 8-cent stock, get excited, and maybe share price will go up to 10 cents. But when you've got this much big money and this many large and institutional investors, it doesn't hurt to look at some of the larger market cap stocks, because that's what these people will be able to invest in. They won't be able to buy some of these smaller market cap, tiny little penny stocks. They're looking for $100 million market cap or higher, $200 million market cap, great. So definitely a consideration when looking at some of these companies. And the list is long. This is just the start. They put it alphabetical. A lot of these companies I've already introduced. So you look at this list right at the start. I have videos on Auxly. I have videos on Adcore. I like both of these. Auxly, I think my video was at 15 cents. Recently, today, they were down to 12.5 cents Canadian, if you could believe that or not. Cannabis has had a rough few weeks, and price just keeps dropping on some of these fantastic cannabis stocks. Adcore is another ad tech player. They are out of Israel. They do have a bunch of cash. So I've already introduced those. I will take a look at a different stock this time. I will take a look at Blue Metric Environmental, market cap of around 50 million. I think they're 47 million right now. Water technology and environmental sciences. I am very bullish on any company that is able to clean water. I think that is a growing need in North America and in the world. And I do think a company like this has some potential. So they are already up 760% in 5 years. I believe in the past 1 year, they're up around 80% from 2024 to 2025. They went all the way to about, I think, $1.75 Canadian and have since been coming down. So I do wonder if somewhere, if they can consolidate here, bench out here somewhere, if that could potentially be a good opportunity for looking at BlueMetric Environmental at Planet Microcap. This is some of their earnings, of course, for a long time, and the reason their share price is up recently. This is going all the way back to 2015. Green is revenue, white is operating income, and blue, light blue here is net income. You can see recently they're finally getting revenue growth after many, many years of really nothing here. The only problem with this company is you look at the net income and you look at the operating income, getting really hard to see, especially with getting some growth. It's really not transitioning to the bottom line. So there's definitely some skepticism here, and I need to take a deeper look at those bottom line underlying numbers, the financial fundamentals. But at the end of the day, I do like that basically the products that they're selling here, right? BlueMetric has the solution that's right for your specific environmental challenge, mitigating environmental contamination. Mostly, I like this part here, providing clean water in challenging and remote locations such as disaster or combat zones, managing waste resources and minimizing residuals. This company is doing all of this, and they're still only about a 47.7 million Canadian market cap. So that one's kind of on my list. Moving on to the next little bit of list here, another bunch of pretty good companies that I like. I made videos here on this list on not many. Which one is this? This is Enwave. So I made a video on Enwave before. Going through this list, I guess that's it, nothing else. So I've got a lot of options here. I think in this case, I'm going to have to take a look at Decibel Cannabis Company. Maybe I just like pain going after another cannabis company. We can joke here because I've been recently building my cannabis index. This was a video I made where I added Oxley to my cannabis index, saying I'm only adding some of the best companies out there. And one of the next companies that was on my list, even though I haven't made a video on them yet, was Decibel Cannabis Company. So that's DB.V on the venture exchange, $80 million market cap. Am I crazy? I mean, that's one of the problems with cannabis. Share price really hasn't moved since 2022. It's been down a little bit. It's been a little bit higher, but not for long in 2023. Down again here in 2024 and 2025. It's been trying to bench here at around 13 cents. It actually went up to 15 cents Canadian here briefly. I thought that was it. That's the breakout. It's going to go to 18, 19, 20 cents. Did not happen. Did not happen. It benched down again, right? The numbers are improving. One of the things that's rare with a cannabis company is this 35% year-over-year growth. So Decibel Cannabis has international expansion. So potential international expansion outside of cannabis, despite being a Canadian cannabis producer. They're operating in Europe and they have facilities in Europe. So potential high growth. But like a lot of these cannabis companies, $36.7 million in debt, 576.9 million shares outstanding, only about 5 million cash. Their balance sheet is improving. It's going to take some time. But I still like Decibel Cannabis. One of the things I like is when I chart out their EV to sales on this chart here, some other great cannabis companies that I really like. This is Cannara Biotech right here, almost at a 2 times EV to sales valuation, right? We got Oxley right here, which has been coming down recently, so it's probably a little lower, but it was at about 1.65 times sales or EV to sales recently. And then in third place here, we have Decibel. So it is the slightly cheaper option, coming in at just over 1 times EV to sales. And then right here is Rubicon Organics. That's the cheapest one, quote unquote cheap on an EV to sales basis at the bottom. But when I plot 4 of these cannabis stocks on this graph, trying to figure out comparative valuations, basically Decibel has some of the highest growth potential in their international expansion, and their valuation is arguably fair when you look at the comparables. Some of the next ones on my list here. Now this time I made a lot of videos here, right? Quite a few. Introducing a Costco of cannabis. That's High Tide. That's a cannabis retailer. Made that video September 11, 2024. So a while ago. This one's a bit more recent in Hydrate Technologies. I think I made this one just 2 or 3 months ago, to be honest with you. McCoy Global. You know, they've been consolidating recently. They're up significantly. I think it was about $2.75 when I introduced them here back in October. So they're up. I've already introduced quite a few of these companies. So I think next one on my list is potentially Ferran Technology Group. Now, why am I interested in this one for Planet Microcap? Because of the market cap. Remember, I said there's 500 investors coming, and 40% of those is going to be institutional investors. So you have about 200 institutional investors, bigger money. They're not going to be able to invest in, you know, those $2.58 million market cap companies, or even the $25.8 million market cap companies might be too small, not enough volume. But when you look at a company like Ferran Technology Group, 258 million, there's enough market cap here, there's enough liquidity here where institutional investors could definitely become excited. And Ferran really needs that, because they were up around $12.60 Canadian recently, like just September of 2025. They released weak earnings, again, similar to Avantcor. I didn't think they were bad. They were okay. They just weren't crushing earnings, crushing good. They did have some holes. That drove the share price back down to $10.26. So this is actually a company that I've covered before. I really liked it back around to here in these prices. And stupidly, I never bought shares. Right? So I was absolutely kicking myself when price went up to here, and especially when price went up to here. But you know what? Now that price is back down to $10, now that they have a decent sized market cap here, a little bit more reasonable valuation, and they're heading to Planet Microcap with 200 institutional investors, I'm starting to gain a little bit more interest back into Ferran Technology Group. A lot of articles here from Simply Wall Street, who absolutely loves this company, talking about how it's still undervalued and assessing valuation following strong Q3 revenue. I love how these articles always ignore some of the holes and some of the weaknesses. But at the end of the day, earnings did come in, I think, pretty good. Mostly I'm just looking at operating cash flow right here. $5.5 million in operating cash flow in 3 months. Market cap of $258 million, adjusted EBITDA $7.7 million in the quarter, up from $7.2 million in Q3 of 2024. So not a crushing quarter, but not bad for me. It's definitely worth looking again at Ferran Technology Group. This list, I made a lot of videos on this list. I've covered New Path Health, really like that company. Next Living Communities, really like the CEO. Again, that's that real estate investment company. Novaleap Health Corp, love their CEO, Chris Dobbin. This is a company in Maritimes, Canada, that is buying up home healthcare service providers. And so it's a bit of an M&A story, trying to get a little bit of organic growth in there as well. This is really a company that is good because it helps people, right? It helps seniors continue to live in their home. I made a video on Now Vertical Group, of course, NTG Clarity Networks I really like. And OmniLight Industries was my #1 pick for 2025 in the NanoCap division, right? So in the NanoCap space. They're doing well, so hopefully that video, my top 5 picks, will do okay thanks to OmniLight Industries. But if I'm going to highlight a company that I haven't covered yet, I really like Next Living, I really like Novaleap Health, and I really like NTG Clarity Networks. One of the ones that I have to admit I've been wrong about recently, and maybe could be wrong about in the future, is Progressive Planet Solutions. This has not been my favorite company. And despite that, share price keeps going up. So I did not like them here, and I was wrong, and they moved up here in share price, and I didn't like them there, and now they've moved up here. So this is now a company with $33.4 million market cap, still pretty low. They've now benched up not once but twice here in 2025, and this most recent bench was at Small Cap Discoveries. So other investors are liking this company. A lot of good news, I have to admit that, right? They provided a shareholder update, so communication with shareholders. They hired a new CTO, sorry. You know, good news with contracts. They're talking about record revenue, gross profit, net income, so good or improving earnings, maybe not good, but improving, right? There's some good stuff here, record annual net income and cash flow. So a lot of things from Progressive Planet that you like to hear. Maybe I'm wrong about this company. That's the way it goes sometimes, right? So I didn't like them a couple times, and share price is up. Next list here, I don't think I really need to pick any new companies from this list. I'm already fairly bullish right now on Reclaim. I've made a video on them. You can go take a look. They are at 8 cents Canadian right now, and I am using their product Reclaim Protect for $20 a year just to give it a shot. So far, I'm happy about it. And then recently, I just released this video on microcap stock with explosive 2026 potential, and I just released this one literally like 2 weeks ago. So I've got no more major updates, still bullish on this company. I still really like Savio Holdings. I missed, Savio had a presentation with Martin Cagle at Radius Research today. I missed that. I look forward to watching it later. Atrium Research has Savio Holdings at a $1 price target. As long as they execute on this strong potential 2026 that they're talking about with multiple catalysts coming up. There are risks. Please go take a look at Beacon Securities, which lowered their price target on Savio Holdings from $1.20 Canadian down to 80 cents. Savio did have recently a larger than expected EBITDA loss. Free cash flow was negative $3 million, with working capital being a drain of $2 million. So definitely some issues, right? Reclaim, again, couple things on the go for them. I didn't mind them back when it was Reclaim. Their core product is to actually take your information and sell it, and you make money off that instead of companies just taking your information for free. So basically monetizing your data on the internet. Not my favorite thing to do as somebody who is on YouTube and X and other platforms. I would rather protect my data. So that is what I have been trying with Reclaim Protect. Pretty cheap, $2.99 a month, but honestly, it was $20 American. They gave me a free month trial, so it was $20 USD for 13 months of protection. So far, so good. I can't give much of an opinion. I'm literally about 2 weeks in. I'm trying to figure out whether or not this product is actually working or whether it's more of a placebo, right? So once I get some information on Reclaim Protect, I will let you know, but their earnings are better. This is from a recent video I had on them. Current ratio is finally improved. Total current assets here for Reclaim, 1.5 million. Total current liabilities, 678,000, significantly improved from last year. So for me, this is a tiny little 8 cent, $8 million market cap, high risk bet in Reclaim, and then Savio Holdings, which I really like as a good setup for 2026. And then finally, again, I'm not going to add any more new stocks to this list. I already like VersaBank. I made a video on them here. Canadian stock breaks into the U.S. markets. Interesting, fintech, online banking play, innovative, and now in the United States. This year has been a year of execution, investment, so it hasn't really been a stunning earnings year. Hopefully that will be next year. Could be a good setup. And then, of course, Zoom Technologies. Can the momentum continue? That's what everybody's asking. Can the momentum continue? hopefully it does for at least the next couple quarters. And, good luck. We haven't seen Zoom Technologies for a while, so it will be good to see them present at Planet Microcap. And the other thing here that could be a little bit bullish for Zoomed is, again, 200 institutional investors showing up, $223 million market cap. That is large enough to finally start getting a little bit more institutional investment. So fingers crossed, maybe that happens. Go kick ass Zoomed and hopefully get some attention from some of those institutional investors. So this is always my investing strategy, where I build a thesis on some of these stocks. I buy. Sometimes it's a small position, tiny position, and then I let it grow over time as long as the company improves, as long as I'm looking at the inputs, the news releases, the earnings, and everything else. I evaluate my original thesis. I change it for either the better or the worst, and then I either buy, trim, sell, or hold my position. So that is how I either build positions or trim positions. And man, there's been a lot of companies to look at, a lot of companies to research, and I've definitely added a few positions recently. Again, I talk about all of this. I have a daily chat in my Patreon Discord, and you can access the Discord through Substack, where basically I'm trying to talk about stocks. I'm addicted to the stock market, right? I talk about stocks as much as I possibly can, morning, evening, sometimes even the night. I'll wake up, think about something, and talk about some stock in the Discord. So thank you to everybody that's joined so far. I really appreciate it. And if you would like some additional content in addition to this public YouTube live streams, go check out commonsenseinvesting.ca. Now that's the end of my presentation, basically covering some of the companies that I'm interested in coming up in Planet Microcap Toronto. Don't forget, if you made it this far, give me a like. It helps with the algorithm. Subscribe if you're new to the channel and want to learn about microcap stocks. Which one is your favorite? It is time for questions, concerns, comments. If you watched this long and you want to cut out here because you just came for the presentation, no problem. I am going to take a sip of my lovely decaf coffee and then see what people are saying over in the comment section. So now's your chance. Questions, concerns, comments, and anything else you want to talk about here. All right, what do we got? Q&A. Let's move to this screen here. All right. I do like Blue Metric. They have interesting stuff with the Army. Yes, they do. They have... I don't know if I like that sometimes. It's such a trade-off. Kraken Robotics. Kraken Robotics has been one of my most successful stocks. I introduced them at around 30 cents. They're now over $6 Canadian. So we're talking about a 20x stock. One of the things that has been frustrating for me with Kraken Robotics is their work with militaries and navies specifically means that some of the information, they're not allowed to talk about it with retail investors. So we don't get the information. So I do like that Blue Metric has these large contracts with the Canadian military, and they're talking about expanding into NATO countries, other NATO countries. I think that has huge potential with Blue Metric Environmental, similar to Kraken, right? Kraken Robotics with their underwater robotics started out with the Canadian Navy. I think it was like a $25 million contract, right? And then from there, it was the Dutch Navy, and then that led into a couple other, are they going to Asia Pacific? They landed kind of this interest from Anduril, and since Kraken Robotics has attracted Anduril, it's been nothing but shooting to the moon, right? So can Blue Metric and their military, contracts follow a similar path? Can they move away from not just keeping their Canadian contracts, but expanding into other NATO countries and then really getting noticed by institutional investors? Might be a little too soon for Blue Metric, only a $47 million market cap company, but hopefully and potentially getting there. They do have a growing interest from me, absolutely. BR, hello, thank you for joining. One thing I don't like is their products seem to be seasonal, at least from what I could find. I guess good business down south, but tariffs, I didn't dig too deep though. If we're talking about Blue Metric, yes, Blue Metric is actually working on getting a little bit more recurring type revenue to smooth out some of their seasonal lumpiness. Absolutely, right? So that is a concern. If you're talking about Reclaim, Planet Microcap released a quick interview with Reclaim. Reclaim is also somewhat seasonal, a little bit, I think. Mostly they get a little bit of extra revenue in Q3, Q4 around the Christmas season, as far as I'm aware of. But I mean, Reclaim itself is more of a recurring SaaS style bit. I paid them $20 for the year, right? So I'm probably, even if they're, here's the thing with a company like Reclaim, even if they're garbage and they don't work, I'll probably accidentally renew my contract with them for at least 2 more years. Because how many times do we, book something, pay for something, and then we just forget about it, right? Either we use it, we like it, we keep it, or we forget about it. And 3 years from now, I'll be like, what is this $20 that keeps coming off my credit card every year, right? What is that? And it's going to be Reclaim Protect. So either way, I think they get a winner here on the recurring revenue side of things from Reclaim Protect. $20 a pop, if they can get a million clients at $20 a pop, that would be $20 million. That would be life-changing for such a tiny company like Reclaim, right? On their YouTube. Cam, are you more excited for this Planet Microcap than the last one? No, I was actually a bit more excited for the US one in Vegas. And I do intend in going in person to the 2026 Spring Planet Microcap Conference in Vegas. I can't wait to go to Vegas. Here's the problem with Planet Microcap in Toronto. I'm excited about it. I don't want anybody to think that I'm not excited. All these wonderful companies. I've been investing in Canada for a while. And one of the things that I've noticed is we're seeing all the same fish in the sea, right? We're running into the same companies over and over and over. Canada has not had a lot of IPOs, a lot of new companies onto the stock market. Paul Andriola at Small Cap Discoveries is a one-man wrecking crew where he's basically dragging these companies onto the stock market, which is fantastic. We need another 20 Paul Andriolas out there to attract more small companies onto the Canadian markets. We just haven't been seeing that. So one of the reasons I'm not as interested in Planet Microcap Toronto is most of these companies I've been watching for years, I haven't seen tons of change in some of them, so it's pretty easy for me to go through the list and kind of rule them out. One of my favorite companies, it's already known, I've made videos on them, that's heading to Planet Microcap Toronto was actually a US company in NextGel. I don't know if they're still going. I thought I saw their name was actually potentially removed from the list. But I like these investing conferences for finding new companies. So I like getting new ideas from going there. And that's why I'm a little bit more excited for the US-based conference, because there's typically more companies that go to the US conferences that I've never heard of before. And I get excited about all these new companies that I get to introduce to my channel, right? So still a great conference, really important for Canada. Absolutely love Planet Microcap for doing it, but it doesn't, I'm not getting up off my seat to head to Toronto for this one. Hoping Roof will have a good conference. Yeah, good luck to them for sure. That's North Star Clean Technologies. They were dying there for a while, right? They actually rebounded recently. I'll just pull up their chart so people can see. So this is the stress that this one gives me. It's absolutely killing me, because me here at Common Sense Investing, I never invest in pre-revenue stocks. This is really the only pre-revenue stock I have covered in the past year, and people just crush me for it all. When's the revenue coming, Cameron? How come the revenue isn't here yet, Cameron, right? They've got some pilot revenue from their facility in Vancouver, but still overall they are a pre-revenue company. They were supposed to fire up their commercial plant in Calgary, basically in like late spring, early summer. We're sitting in October. They've given us some information. There's been no revenue, so things have been delayed. And, you know, I get to go through this torture where share price was basically at 40 cents heading into 2025, gone down to recently about 31 cents Canadian. Finally, they're starting to rebound. Maybe that is Planet Microcap Toronto, people doing their research ahead of the conference. They're back up to 37 cents Canadian. This is one of the issues, though, with these pre-revenue companies. Every earnings comes in, and there's no real numbers to evaluate. There's nothing to really hold them accountable to. You're just waiting on that press release of, we're fired up, everything is great, everything's wonderful, to the moon. You're waiting for that, for share price to go up. And when you don't get that, it just kind of slowly dribbles down. So yes, I too am hoping that North Star Clean Technologies has a good conference, because up until basically this week, they were trending down, 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 down. Cameron, do you have a top 3 stocks for PMC Toronto? I remember for Vegas, you put up your top 10 going in. I mean, I think if you watch my channel enough, the problem with this fall is there's been so many stocks to cover. Small Cap Discoveries, Cantech, LD Microcap Conference is October 20th, and then Planet Microcap on 21st. So to say, pick a top 3 stocks out of the 155 companies that are presenting in October, that's pretty hard to do. You're saying, Cameron, pick like your top 1% of the companies out there. Like I said, it's in my Discord, it's in my Substack. I think if you watch my channel enough, you get an idea of the companies that I'm talking about over and over again on this channel. Those would really be my top 3 stocks. As far as like picking a true top 3, I tell you, one of the things that I'm looking for in Planet Microcap Toronto is hard to gauge, because I don't think success is for a company to necessarily go into Planet Microcap and get a 5-cent share price bump that lasts for 2 weeks, and then when people forget about the stock, it kind of drops back down. That's not really success. What I consider success for some of these companies attending Planet Microcap isn't necessarily that people are going to rush in and FOMO buy the stock. I want more of these institutional investors to put some of these stocks on their watch list, to do some research, and to, over time, potentially this takes until 2026 when those audited earnings start coming out, but over time get some of that institutional buying, right? NTG Clarity Networks says a little bit of institutional buying. They're at around 80-some million dollar market cap. If they can get up to 100 million, get more institutional buying, that's a win. That would happen over the next 12 months, not the next 12 days. Decibel Cannabis, I just talked about, $87 million market cap. Institutions have been avoiding cannabis stocks. Can Decibel, Oxley, and Canara go to Planet Microcap? Can 1, 2, or any 3 of these companies convince institutional investors that the time to invest in cannabis is now, that the risk levels have gone down? Because if any one of those 3 or 4, I think Rubicon's going as well, any one of those 4 or 5 cannabis companies that are attending Planet Microcap Toronto can convince some institutional investors to invest in cannabis again, I guarantee you the whole cannabis sector would go up, because those institutions would be like me. They're not going to take their bucket of money and put it all in one cannabis company. They're going to build an index of some of the best cannabis companies. So it's just going to take one cannabis company to cause all the cannabis stocks to go up. But if that happens, it's not going to happen in October, right? These institutions are going to look at the company, put them on a list, spend time researching them, wait for the audited annual financials to come out in March or April of 2026, and then we could potentially see buying in, you know, the spring and get that nice bull market where these cannabis stocks will be going up. So My version of success at Planet Microcap is going to be very hard to measure because it's going to happen after the conference is done, and in some cases 3 or 4 months after the conference is done, right? You were discussing Plan V, Progressive Planet. Sorry, I got the wrong company on that one, but I think I threw up a couple different comparables there. You recently bought back into Grid, that is Tantalus. I am going to hold that long term. I think it's a very impressive product. Yeah, look, everybody loves Grid. I'll pull it up on the chart here. Let's see here. It's one of those companies, I think you're right. You know, if I get into this whole Planet Microcap has a lot of institutional investors showing up, then this one could really impress. $192 million market cap, so that is within range of institutional investors. One of the concerns I've had as a retail investor is this has never been a company that's cheap, but it's one of those things where, you know, you get what you pay for sometimes, right? And it's never really been that cheap. So I thought it was expensive when it was here at like a 32 times EV to EBITDA, and now it's up to a 90 times EV to EBITDA. So, I mean, I thought this was expensive and I was wrong. I never bought shares. I'm not a shareholder. Now it's up to 90x, right? I thought this was expensive at 1.46 times sales. I was wrong. Now it's up to 2.89 times sales. So I thought this was expensive, and now it's doubled in valuation here. So I love the company. I love the product. I love what they're doing. Some of these companies, though, especially if you're interested in them for the institutional investor type side of things, you really have to look like long term. Forget this whole 12-month thing and kind of look more on the 5-year, 10-year chart, right? Yeah, absolutely. So for me, like the higher the market cap goes, for me, the longer term I need to look. Like I can buy a $10 million market cap company, and my timeline for that might be that I want to see improvement in 6 months. And if I don't see improvement in 6 months, then I'm going to sell. That might be my investing decision personally. When it's a larger company, I might say, well, I'm going to buy here at this price, and I'm only going to check back on the stock every 12 months, and maybe in 6 years is when I expect a good return kind of thing. So the larger the market cap, the longer my time commitment. And yeah, there are some other good companies like Tantalus going to Planet Microcap, but for me, it's a little bit too large. I'm already introducing a Ferran technology at close to the same market cap, right? Solid company and product. I'm in the sector, and products like these will be picked up by Schneider, Eaton, Siemens. Yeah, absolutely. Their critical material stocks are going crazy, some going up 30%, 40% in a day. Do you have any picks in this area? I notice most are fluff or nowhere close to production. Yeah, no, I don't. So I don't cover those. I don't care if they're going up or going down. Like in the past 5 or 6 years, well, 5 or 6 years ago, I was in a bunch of critical metals type and metals, materials, commodities type investor groups. And, you know, it was a lot of talk and no execution. And I realized one thing with commodities, it's really a game of not so much what you know or what you can educate yourself on. I always found commodities was more a game of who you knew. Like if you knew people in the space, you knew people close to the industry sector, you knew people in a company, you had distinct advantages over your average retail investor. So one of the things that I found is that in these industry sectors, unless you're in the know, you're out of the know, and it's really hard to make money. So I'm happy that like gold is going up, silver's, everything's going up now. That's great, because you know all my friends that have invested in commodities, in metals, in junior oil drillers and junior metal companies, I've been kicking their ass now for 5 years. And now it's time for them to at least try to catch up. I know they're way behind me, but you know, this year, hopefully they can at least try to catch up to my returns. So I'm not an investor in any of those companies. No, I stick to kind of the similar structure of profitable, predictable, consistent revenue growth and income growth. and that's simply not the critical material stocks, right? Very bullish on hydrate technology. Do you plan on doing a follow-up video? I just made a video on them like 3-4 weeks ago. So no, typically I'll make, again, my goal is not to make videos to just keep you up to date every day. Some people on YouTube cover 2 stocks, and that's all they do is make videos constantly updating on 2 stocks. That would drive me insane. So keep in mind, I'm an investor that typically holds about 15 to 25 stocks in my portfolio, and I'll have about 50 to 100 stocks on my watch list. So I like diversification, and so I set time horizons. With Hydrate, I'll look back at them in probably 6 months, right? In 6 months, I might look at what they're doing, see if they've improved. Have they really executed on their promises? What were they talking about? 400,000 orders in the month of December. Did they achieve that? So really, I don't have any need to update constantly on some of these companies. I'm definitely a little bit more of a longer term mindset where maybe every 6 months I'll kind of take a look back on that. So no follow-up video for me on Hydrate in the near future. We do chat about it on the Discord, obviously, but I mean, unless they had something significant change, it doesn't really justify a new video for me. Thanks for sharing. Feel free to share any extra tidbits if you got them. Cameron, for roof, in my opinion, no matter how shiny and pretty the investor presentation seems, we need to see at least 2 facilities running before it's investable. The whole 10x thesis that floats. Yes, it's a pre-revenue company. They're trying to build their first commercial facility in Calgary, and the timeline has been absolutely insane. Everything's been late, everything's been delayed. It's getting closer, and that's fantastic. But I think what North Star Clean Technologies needs to do is convince people that they can open up a second operation in less than don't want to swear here, in less than the huge amount of time it has taken them to open their first operation, right? That's what the market is waiting for. I mean, first you have to prove that your first operation is actually operationally feasible, that the business model works, that the numbers you said were going to come out of this facility are accurate and it's actually going to make money. You need to prove that, right? And then once you could prove that we weren't lying to you guys and this is actually going to be a profitable business and the business model works, then prove to us that you could take that business model and repeat it quicker than what you've done so far, right? I mean, if North Star Clean Technologies is only going to open a new facility every 3 years, everybody would sell right now, right? It's just taking too long. So around is for when they have 5 to 10 facilities up and running. If we have to pay 2 to 3 times higher price today, then I think it's worth it rather than pre-revenue speculation. Yeah, and that's the tough part of pre-revenue stocks, right? You're putting a lot of trust in the company, and there's really no history of execution because they don't have anything running. They don't have any sales. They don't have any product market fit. They don't have a proven business strategy. Nothing is really proven. So we're waiting on proof. It's too bad LPS, that's Legend Power Systems, hasn't been in attendance at any of these recent conferences. They would get roasted. I don't think it's too bad. So like Legend Power Systems is one of those companies that has been over-promising and under-delivering, right? At least in my opinion. So this is 1 year, this is 5 years. This has been a great company to trade, right? I've actually covered them on my channel before. It seems like every time they drop to about 10 cents Canadian in share price, they get these little pumps and people make money. And then as soon as the pump goes up, it seems to drop down. You get another pump and then it drops down. You know, recently I was interested in them again. They pivoted their sales strategy away from trying to sell their own product because they're basically running out of cash to sell their own product. They're trying to get these third-party sellers in where basically they get somebody else to sell their product and then they give them a cut off those profits. That caused another share price gain right here, and now it's down again. So I mean, this is a product, SmartGate, which regulates power in buildings. And I see it as a product that should be all over North America and the world. So they have a product that I think should be everywhere. And I've been covering them now for 2 years. Zero execution. Zero execution on the sales slide, on the sales side of things. So, I mean, if they went to a investing conference, I would absolutely roast them with questions like, where are the sales? What's going on? Like, so it's probably smarter that they stay away. I like Cleantech too, but it ran up on me after small cap discovery, so I wasn't able to get in at 45 cents. Absolutely. So I made a video on Cleantech at 35 cents Canadian, right? So, and it pretty simple investing. This reminds me a lot of Enterprise Group, which for me ran from like 20 cents to $2. This is similar. So they have these legacy products that were basically sitting there because they ran on diesel. They're changing these legacy products over to natural gas and then putting them out in the field and renting them. So I think I had some pretty lucky timing. I think my video is actually right around here at around 35 cents. My video, I don't know if my video caused it. I always hate it when my videos cause a pump in share price, but they did go up to 50 cents. They dropped back down in September, and now they're up again, probably here thanks to their presentation at Small Cap Discovery. So 54 cents Canadian, 15.8 million market cap. I still think they have potential, but definitely, you know, one of the things we're looking for in microcap companies is mispricing, and this was definitely mispriced. Now we'll see. You know, I think sometimes companies just have to look at it as a challenge. They've now seen some share price improvement. You now have to almost change your investor presentation. You have to change it away from, oh my gosh, we're incredibly cheap guys, we're an incredibly cheap company, all we have to do is produce a little bit of growth and we're going to be worth way more than this. And you kind of have to change your approach to be able to convince people that, okay, we're maybe not at the price we want to be, but we can see that the market probably sees us as a little bit more fairly valued here at 54 cents. Change up the presentation a little bit and convince investors that the growth can continue for longer than the next 6 months, right? So for some of these companies, the ability to communicate properly with investors is incredibly important. And that's one of the things I look for is, you know, companies that are able to communicate what they're doing very well sometimes turn out to be better investments, right? It's not just about the company and the earnings. Sometimes it's about, you know, can you communicate with the market what the value is? Do you think Kraken and gatekeepers are overvalued? You tell me. you tell me. They keep going up. So I'm not going to say that they're overvalued on a public YouTube channel. Big fan of Ferran and the CEO Brad. Great visibility on demand over the next 5+ years with Airbus and Boeing's backlogs. Yes, absolutely agreed. And it's interesting because, you know, even when you've been doing this for so many years, you look back in hindsight and you're like, you know, I was looking at this company, I think it was $6.78 Canadian. And I'm like, this is a good company. I should really buy this company. You just don't, right? You forget about it for a while. And before you know it, it's $12. And you're like, shit, I don't know if I want to buy it at $12. But I think it was, you know, Ian Castle from Microcap Club, who always says, you know, if you don't like the price of a microcap stock, just wait a few months. Insert Donald Trump, insert a weak quarter of earnings, and is the buying opportunity back? You know, it's microcap stocks are nothing if volatile, and that can be frustrating sometimes, but it also provides multiple buying opportunities if you like the company. On the topic of protecting your online data, I suggest the web browser DuckDuckGo. They even block ads on YouTube. Cool. I will look that up. Absolutely. Any online privacy or lack of ads that I can get, I appreciate. Do I know anything about Oracle offhand? Yeah, this is a company that was promoted by Stock promoters. I won't mention any names. The share price went up significantly. They overpromised, they underexecuted, and the share price crashed. They have a bunch of copper. I've heard rumors that their copper is not as high quality as what they want the market to believe, and that has been what is keeping their share price in check. But that is not a company that I would ever purchase myself personally. I do not like promoted companies. I do not like promoted stocks, right? So not for me. What's my thoughts about Tornado Infrastructure Equipment being acquired by a U.S. company? Looks like more to come. Yeah, look, I've been talking about this. I try not to get into politics in this channel. Don't get me started on politics. But, you know, as a Canadian investor, even though I'm not, most of the companies I invest in are American. America is where the opportunities is. America is where the growth is. America is where the innovation is. And it seems like every time in Canada we get a good Canadian company start to succeed, it gets bought out by an American company. This Tornado Global is not a one-off event. This happens over and over and over and over. So we always talk build Canadian, buy Canadian, support Canadian. It just gets bought out by Americans, right? And then what's going to happen is Tornado Global Infrastructure has their facility in Red Deer, Alberta. They are going to take that technology, and now all the growth, all the new manufacturing, all the new trucks getting built are all going to get built down in the United States. So this is America winning. This is how they win. And Tornado Global Hydrovac is just another example about this, right? How about D-Box is good to hold? I don't give buy, sell, or hold recommendations. I don't know. I like D-Box. Recently they had, if you go on X is a fantastic platform for investors to just browse around, get ideas, get some information. I know a lot of good investors that I really respect recently toured the D-Box headquarters and their facility, and we're very impressed, and those full-time investors said we're buying more shares. So there has been discussion that the goal of D-Box Technologies is to basically increase their company, improve their company, get some growth, and then go for a sale. Again, will they sell to an American company? Probably, right? So D-Box is another one. You might not be able to hold long term, because I think the expectation in the next 18 months or so is for D-Box to get bought out. That's a rumor, but that's kind of the open-ended rumor that the market is talking about. In all fairness, I haven't seen their CEO give any presentation, so I haven't heard that from the horse's mouth, so to speak, right? The CEO has not been on YouTube talking about the next steps with this company, and until I get that communication, there's definitely you know, I need more inputs to make those kind of decisions. So absolutely. Cameron, in your Discord, you don't usually bring up all the fear-mongering about gold at record highs with S&P running up, people saying USD losing dominance, the whole fiat's done, etc. Thoughts on all of it? Ignore all that shit. Ignore all that shit. Oh my gosh. You know, I've been doing this long enough. If I was trying to invest and pay attention to the macroeconomics, number one, all my hair would be gray or bald. This beard would be gray at least, and maybe my head would be bald because of the stress. The stress of trying to invest through the macroeconomics. I tell you what, these fear mongers basically tell you 100% of the time that the United States is dying. It's a dying country. It's Rome. It's going away. It's fading away. And they've been wrong over and over and over. And the one time, like the 5% of the time that they're right, and maybe the U.S. slips into some form of recession, or you know, they make a mistake and something happens, they're like, oh, we told you so. It's the end of the world. We were right. It happens so infrequently. And so I would more look towards Warren Buffett's statements. I think he said it back in, did Warren Buffett say it in something like the 60s or the 70s? Like, it was a long time ago. And he's like, never bet against the United States, right? So I don't. Again, when you look at, and I stick to this, when you look at what I do, that's why I always have this up on my presentations. This has how I invest has very little to nothing to do with macroeconomics and all the fear and the USD losing power and all that other nonsense. I look at individual companies. Sometimes that does have to pull in some macroeconomics. You would be crazy to not look at things like tariff concerns, or, in the case of a stock like NTG, they have currency conversion. So you do have to look at some of that stuff, but don't look at it on a broad, the world is ending type basis. You look at it on a company basis as one factor into building a thesis. Then you evaluate those inputs, make decisions on the company, and then depending on that, buy, sell, or trim. What I find, like, even during the crash, remember late 2021 to 2022, a lot of people were holding stocks, even though the stock market was absolutely crashing. The earnings were going down. And so what happens for me naturally is, as these inputs were changing, I was trimming and selling stocks. So I didn't get caught in that massive share price decline in late 2021 to early 2022, because I'd already sold most of my companies once I started seeing those inputs change and earnings start to go down. So as long as you're willing to be able to be flexible on that, I don't really see any need to lose sleep at night and be stressed out about all these different macroeconomic factors. I've had this conversation with people. I'm not betting against the United States at all. I think they're actually a power on the rise still, and that's where most of my money is. So we can change any of the stuff, adapt to what we have data for, not fear-based hypothetical. Yes, inputs. Absolutely. That's what I like as well. Listen, if we were afraid of all that stuff, we wouldn't be here. I'd never be here. I would have just invested in gold all my life, and that would have worked out terribly until 2025, because I have absolutely crushed gold for many, many years in returns, except for this year. I think gold's up like 50%. I think I'm up about 32%. Gold is finally going to beat me by maybe 18%. They're having a historic world record shattering year in gold. And so they're finally going to get the 1 year where gold beats common sense investing. Congratulations. But 99% of the time, I'll take investing in stocks over some of that. So thanks for the input. I honestly get a bit worried, but maybe I'm spending too much time on X. My kids call it doom scrolling, right? You get in there, negativity sells, man, right? Negativity sells. They don't want to sell you hope or happiness. Sometimes hope works a little bit, but man, you get that negativity and you get in there, my kids call it doom scrolling, and you click on a couple like afraid videos where they're showing you the nasty stuff, and you read a bit more because this is terrible and you want to read more about it. Next thing you know, everything that pops up on your screen is just the end of the world. That's how they get you, right? And it's just simply, it simply doesn't work. It'll send you to the grave. It doesn't matter if you make $10 million in the stock market if you lose 10 years off your life, right? You trade that time for money any day of the week. So make it fun, make it easy. Don't stress yourself out. Can't do roof. It's an ESG play. ESG appeal is real, but without scale, it's greenwashing. Yeah, I won't argue with you too much there. North Star Clean Technologies, the only thing I would throw in there is it's not really supposed to be an ESG play, because and again, this is where they need to prove the business model. But in theory, they charge tipping fees, right? So they charge tipping fees. So when you're dumping shingles, you have to pay North Star tipping fees. That would be cheaper than taking the shingles to the dump. So it's an ESG play, but it shouldn't really need the ESG subsidies, because there should be an actual free market economy reason for people to sell their shingles or take their shingles to North Star, because in theory, North Star would still be cheaper than the dump. So completely agree with what you're saying, and but that was always my backup, because I don't really like a lot of these ESG companies either. But I always looked at it as like, the business model makes sense if it works. just so far, we have not seen the business model actually work. So that's the concern. 1 hour and 15 minutes in, losing my voice, out of questions, out of comments. As always, thank you for joining me here, Common Sense Investing. Really appreciate it. Another live stream in a week. The next live stream will be the day before Planet Microcap starts in Toronto. So I'm sure that we'll have more discussion about Planet Microcap in a week, but I will see you then. And I am shutting this one down. As always, thank you for your support. Really appreciate it. Thanks for coming around. You could be absolutely anywhere and you're here with me talking about microcap stocks, because hopefully we're all addicted and making money. So good luck out there, and I'll see you soon.